Common sense appears to be prevailing for the most part in the Sunshine State in the aftermath of Parkland. However, that's not stopping members of Congress from targeting the Second Amendment rights of all Americans in an apparent effort to, quote, do something, unquote, post-Parkland. The problem is all this gun control talk is being done in a historical vacuum, devoid of any infusion of the Constitution and why we have the Second Amendment. But why? Why no discussion of the founding document and the reason behind Amendment number 2? Joining me now from Waco, Texas, singer, songwriter, Second Amendment champion, and board member of the National Rifle Association, Ted Nugent. Ted, essentially the way I boil it down, I was just talking to my daughter about this weekend, is Amendment number 2 is there essentially to protect Amendment number 1. That's kind of oversimplifying it, but that's basically what's going on here. But I hear virtually no one talking about the context of the Constitution and the Second Amendment post-Parkland. Do you?
Well, number one, I bring you greetings from the freedom-drenched environs of Central Texas, where
Yes.
we the people and common sense and logic and self-evident truth guide our very quality of life and the American dream every day. And I salute you, Graham, because not only do you deserve me, but you obviously have raised your daughter with that throttling self-evident truth, logic, and common sense. And you're right, it is alive and well across this country. That's why when people take a breath and escape the stranglehold, dare I say, of emotion, which and emotions are good. This very emotional time in this country, especially after the horrific demonacy of Parkland, and not to mention Sandy Hook and Columbine and all these other mass slaughters. But let me tell you, I'm just a guitar player, but I'm 70 years clean and sober, and my brain and my logic and my sensibilities work really good. And I don't need anybody to write down self-evident truths for me to make good, positive, if beneficial decisions in life. And that's what our founding fathers did, and that's certainly what your daughter grasped. And everywhere I go, people understand that God gave me the gift of life. I not only have the right to defend it, I have a moral, intellectual, and spiritual obligation to defend my gift of life from evil. Hence, my right to keep and bear arms. Anybody that doesn't get that needs to call Michael Moore, 1-800-NUMBNUT, and maybe he can tell you why personal hygiene is superfluous.
The framers of the Constitution didn't put it so eloquently as you did, but essentially the framers of the Constitution looked at the Second Amendment and being able to protect yourself as a God-given right, just like we have the right to practice whatever religion we want. This is one of those fundamental truths from the folks who framed our Constitution and gave us the Declaration of Independence, by the way. But when I look at those kids in Parkland and I see other kids across the country parroting what some of these kids are saying, the anti-gun rhetoric, I feel sorry for them because of this vacuum that has been created where they're not taught the Constitution in school, and so they have no foundation. No mooring to even understand what they're saying when they come out and they attack guns and they come out with anti-gun rhetoric. They have nothing to tether it to, constitutionally speaking. This is what's missing to me in the class, among other things. God is also missing, but certainly teaching the Constitution, and the reason we have the Constitution and the reason we have the Second Amendment is completely missing in public schools.
Well, it isn't mentioned often enough. In fact, it seems that the only time I hear the truth about the dumbing down of America, it comes from me. But thank God for guys like you and so many in the conservative side that still celebrate, again, self-evident truth, common sense, and logic, Graham, like your own daughter and like my sons and daughters and my grandkids and my brothers and sisters and my band and my crew and my management and my Spirit of the Wild production team and my buddies here in the hunting camps of Texas and across America. That common sense and truth still resonates, but we had to learn the truth and common sense, and we had to get self-evident truth beyond the anti-education system that I am convinced has intentionally dumbed down America. You ask a child in America today, much less an adult, about the Trail of Tears, about the Bataan Death March, about Auschwitz, about the Dust Bowl, about the pivotal moments in our life where we had to make responsible and difficult decisions and make sacrifices and take risks to remain in the asset column of America by using statistics and science and truth and evidence. And you find that missing. But again, I bring you great positive spirit, Graham. Everywhere I go, people still use this self-sufficiency, rugged individualism, honesty, intellectual, historical education that we got in spite of the anti-education system across this land to have a quality of life and remain in the asset column. So yes, we pray for the families of these horrible mass slaughters that our government didn't protect us from, even though they were warned 40-plus times, that certain law enforcement agents failed and refused to protect us from, even though they were notified and alerted to the glaring alarms of we will shoot the school up, and they still didn't do anything. So believe me, Graham, you and I are not alone, but don't expect it from Hollywood, academia, media, or 50% of our government, because they are brainwashed, they hate freedom, they hate guns, they hate families in the NRA. And let's be perfectly clear, my fellow members in the National Rifle Association are heroes of law enforcement, heroes of military that have sacrificed dearly for the freedoms that they're willing to fight for, which the Second Amendment is number one. Know that, spread that, and never vary from that.
Very well put. But it concerns me that you have the federal government being requested, many Americans are requesting of the federal government more layers of government to what I would call take away the fundamental rights, the Second Amendment rights of many Americans. For example, raising the age to purchase a long gun from 18 to 21, yet at the same time, we consider these 18, 19, 20-year-olds adults. We send them off to war, and oh, by the way, we hand them a, quote, weapon of war, yet we're not going to be allowing them to defend themselves here at home. Doesn't make any sense. Another thing, Ted, this whole notion of having more mental health checks. Now, of course, we don't want a crazy person to have a firearm in their hands. But at the same time, on the other side of the coin, it worries me greatly. Who is the arbiter of who is mentally stable and who is mentally unstable? That would be, I guess, the same federal government that screwed up in Parkland, from the FBI to the Sheriff's Department to the social workers to whatever. So these Americans are asking for more layers of government. And this is what I fear. It's the death of the Second Amendment by 1,000 cuts. Until one day, it's going to be up to the federal government what guns we can own. There'll probably be a pellet gun that's got to have some sort of tracking device on it.
Unfortunately, Graham, pellet guns are already illegal in a lot of places, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Massachusetts, California, and Illinois. You've hit it right on the nose, but let me bring it into the most painful and dramatic and, I hope, impacting point of view and hands-on experience that I possibly can. I'm blessed beyond words to be privileged and honored and humbled to be invited into the families of the U.S. military heroes. I get to train with Delta Force and Navy SEALs and the Army Rangers and the Special Ops and the Green Beret. And I have attended so many funerals where I had to salute so many flag-draped coffins. Yeah. And in every hunting camp and in the passages of Afghanistan and all through Iraq and the Middle East during the War on Terror in 2005 when the Marines sacrificed so dearly for our constitutional freedoms, each and every member of the U.S. military and their families, Graham, they tell me that they're willing to die for the Bill of Rights. They're willing to die for the self-evident truths that make this experiment in self-government the only place in the world to truly experience freedom as God intended it to be for mankind. And when you have the heroes of the military charging into those firefights, charging into those dangerous conditions, knowing that they won't make it out in many instances, and they bring up the Second Amendment, Graham, they tell me that they're willing to die for the right to keep and bear arms. How dare the Hollywood elite hypocrites? How dare the lowest learners and the gun-running Barack Obamas and Eric Holders? How dare the Hillary Clintons who will look you right in the eye and lie about a video in Benghazi? How dare we trust them to determine who of us is qualified to have our God-given individual rights as guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution? And I echo the pulse of America when I say never.
Let's secure our schools. Let's do what Israel did and allow firearms on campus in the hands of good guys to keep the bad guys out. That's the bottom line, the way I look at post-Parkland. Real quick, I'm out of time, Ted. Are you going to be touring this year at all?
Yeah, who's going to stop me, Graham? Yeah, I've got the greatest band in the world. I got Jason Hartless on drums and Greg Smith on bass guitar, the biggest animals in the history of rhythm and blues and rock and roll. I'll be touring all across the summer, all across North America this summer for the 55th year in a row playing I think this year I do my 6,700th concert. So I'm having so much fun, it's stupid.
All right. Well, we'll get you on when you're about to kick off your tour, and we'll have a revisit to all this. Ted Nugent, thanks very much.